was driving into the property, I noticed the placard over here that mentions Van Dorn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that placard represents?
That placard represents the fact that General Earl Van Dorn was a Confederate general that was placed here by the Confederate Army to sort of head off some of the Union activities, and while he was here in Spring Hill, he became romantically involved with another man's wife, and the other man murdered him in our house.
Right there in Ferguson Hall.
In Ferguson Hall, that's correct.
And when was that?
That was in 1863.
Wow.
Yeah, May 7th, 1863.
And Bill, I'd like to think I'm a pretty in-style guy, but looking at your clothing here, I must have missed something. So why are you dressed like this exactly?
Well, as the historian for Ferguson Hall, I do portray the owner of the house that had it built in 1852 and 53, Martin Chairs. And so I welcome guests as they come in as Martin Chairs.
All right.
So we're in the front entrance, correct?
Right.
Ferguson Hall, and if it isn't, it certainly looks like it is because it's very grand. And obviously, the first thing I have to ask you is, you know, it's so beautiful with all of these large pillars and all of the detail work, which you don't see in structures built today. So, do you have any knowledge as to where that comes from?
There was a period of time there in the mid-1800s where Greek Revival architecture was very prevalent, and of course buildings like Ripavilla and Oak Lawn and Elm Springs and in Columbia and several other houses around this area in Middle Tennessee were built as Greek Revival structures, and so that was what this one was modeled after. And of course this house was built simultaneously with Ripavilla.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of the common theme that we're seeing here is some of these other homes that we visited, they're all looking pretty much identical. You know, there's a few differences, but they're all that Greek style building.
Right. And,
were those locations built by the same builders?
No, they weren't. They were built by different ones. But again, it was the style that was popular at that period, and so the various builders were very skilled at making it happen. And it's interesting that most of this work was done with millwork right on site. You didn't order these from a manufacturer to be shipped in. They were actually made on site. And the bricks were made right here in Spring Hill as well.
Oh, wow.
So that's trees that they're cutting down in the area to build this home?
That's correct.
And how long would it take to construct a structure like this?
This house was begun in October of 52, and it was completed by December of 53. So
wow.
You're looking at maybe 12 to 15 months.
Okay.
And that's why I think it was different builders building it, because a different builder built Ripavilla than built this house.
Oh, okay. And obviously it took that long too, because they really put a lot of attention to the detail.
Exactly.
And it sounds like making sure that they were using the best local products to make it.
Right. And the wood that was used in the house was probably cut right here in this area. Poplar, cedar, white ash, all of these woods are used in the house at particular points. The white ash was used for floors and doors. It's hardest of the woods, and then the cedar was used around the windows and the door frames because it was weather resistant and lasted a long time. And the poplar was used on the floors because that was also a very hard wood, and so the floors in the main house are made out of poplar.
Wow. So why don't you come on and join us as we go inside. Okay, so now we're in the room that is just off of the entrance, and can't help but notice all these lovely dining tables here. So do you normally have it laid out like this?
These tables are here for us to serve our guests when they come in on tour groups. We are the last stop on a progressive dinner that the Visitors Bureau puts together, And they come here, they get cake and coffee or water or tea or whatever is the last stop for their desserts. And
that's great.
they also get a story about this room.
Yeah, and the history, right?
Yeah.
So how, if someone was interested in being able to take that tour, how do they go about doing that?
Two ways. One is they can contact the Visitors Bureau and find out if they're putting one together locally.
Okay.
They usually do at least that sometime toward Christmas. And then if they want to, if they've got a group, I usually will take 6 or 8 or more, and I'll have groups come here by appointment. They call us here at the Children's Home, and I can provide that for them.
Oh, great. Great. Okay, so now getting on to the history, especially of this particular room, has quite a bit of historic story behind it, correct?
Yes, that is true.
And that relates mostly back to Van Dorn, which we were speaking of earlier with the plaque in the front entrance.
Yes, this room was the room that he was living in. He first came to Spring Hill when they positioned him here in Middle Tennessee. They first came to Spring Hill, stayed at White Hall, which is down here off of Duplex. And that's when the affair started between the General and Jessie McKissick Peters. And she happened to live in a house that looked just like that. That's a painting of the house right over here on the wall.
Oh, okay.
That's the Peters house. And she lived over there, and that house sat about a half a mile behind the house here.
Behind this house. Okay, and it's still there?
No, it burned back in the 1950s, so it's no longer there. He was staying at White Hall. Jessie went down there, and she wanted to meet him, and the affair started. Mrs. White didn't take kindly to the affair taking place at her house, so she asked her husband to relocate the General. And he came down here and he says, "Martin, can you put the General up?" And we said, "Well, we'll close the pocket doors, put him in this back parlor here." And he had his cot located on that wall, the wardrobe over here, a washstand back here, and a field desk similar to the one in the corner there was positioned right here by the window.
Oh, okay.
And he also had chairs that were lined up here, about 10 chairs for his officers to come in. He'd brief his staff here. But it was also very convenient because he could look out across the field and see when she would wave the lantern that he could come over and visit.
Right.
So that's kind of a little story off
kind
the
of
side.
hiding him in the back part of the house, but at the same time making it more convenient.
He liked it. I think he enjoyed that very much because it was better than being at White Hall because he had no visual sight to the Peters house. But when Dr. Peters came back to town, Dr. Peters had given up his medical practice to be in the state legislature, and he was the state legislature during the war, moved from Nashville to Memphis, and so he's over there. She's his third wife. His first wife died before their first anniversary. The second wife bore him 7 children, and then she passed, and he needed somebody to take care of his kids. And this was common in those days. A man would marry somebody just for the convenience of having somebody take care of his kids. He had 7.
And we did say 7.
7, yes. There were 7 children there. And and she was also a cousin by a previous marriage. So that was just one of the things that happened back in the 1800s. But when he came back to town, Mrs. White made sure that he knew that the General and Jessie had been inappropriate. And so he told Miss Jessie he was going to Chevyville for some business. He'd be back in 3 days. Well, the next night he steps up on the porch. The General is already over there, and there's a confrontation, and everybody pretty much agrees that the doctor told the General, "You show up over here again, I'll blow your brains out." And so we found out later that the doctor said he wanted the General to put in writing that he had been the aggressor, that he had taken unfair advantage of a poor, naive young housewife. And so on the morning of May 7th, he showed up over here to get that written statement. And the doctor later told us, he said, he read the first statement, and I could have lived with that. And the second statement, my blood began to boil. And when he read that third statement, I meant to shoot him right between the eyes. But he ducked, and the bullet went in over his left ear and lodged in his forehead. And he collapses there. The doctor simply walks out. Right here on
at his desk.
At his desk, and of course that's why the blood stains are back here.
Okay.
And so the doctor simply went out, got on his horse, and this time he really did ride to Chevyville. And he got over there, and Leonidas Polk, who was commanding the unit over there, said, "You got to keep riding." So he went on back through and got back to Memphis. He divorced Miss Jessie for abandoning him and his family. Of course, Miss Jessie's still back here in Spring Hill taking care of his 7 children. The doctor never was tried. He was detained once, but he always said it was a justifiable killing because he violated the sanctity of my home.
So we are now standing in the, what is the north entrance,
That's
or
right.
north porch, which you said carriages
Yes, they would
would bring them in this way,
Well, they would
correct?
drop their luggage off here, and if they were guests coming in to spend the night, they would bring their supplies in through this entrance.
Okay, and you said to me earlier that there was part of the agreement on the contract in regards to
Yes.
how this.
Well, the
Had
north
to-
side columns specifically were to match those that were at Whitehall. It's just like when you see something you like in another house, you say, I really would like to have that in my house.
Right.
The columns on the north side of this house, as well as Rickleville, are square, and they do match the columns at Whitehall.
Okay.
And so that's why those columns are different. And it's just designed that way.
Now, how did it come to be known as Ferguson Hall?
And good question, because it was during the acquisition by the Branham and Hughes Academy. It was known up until that point as the Martin Chairs Home. And all the references might have been just Martin Chairs Home. And so when Branham and Hughes moved here, he was naming the various houses and dormitories halls. And he named this one Ferguson Hall after his mother-in-law, Fanny Ferguson.
Oh, okay.
And so it became Ferguson Hall. And it's been Ferguson Hall since 1904. Long time.
Yeah.
And Bill, if anybody wanted to get the information on Ferguson Hall or come visit Ferguson Hall, where would they go?
Well, you can Google Ferguson Hall.
Okay.
You can go to the Visitors Bureau website, and they have some information there. And as I've mentioned before, I've tried to get them to correct the Dr. Haddock story, but that's not. They may find it says Dr. Haddock had a house built, but as we go through there, there's some pretty good information there. I also did a video with David Logston, who wrote the Antebellum Trail Guide book. I don't have it here, but we've got that going. Sounds like we got a ghost.
Or a visitor of
But
some sort.
go to the website. We'll
Okay.
just go to the website at the Visitors Bureau, Murray County Visitors Bureau, and get that in.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
showing us
It's
this
been my
beautiful
pleasure.
place and sharing all the
Thank you, Bill.
information
Thank you, Ryan.
with us. And if you all want to join us next time around, I think we're going to be heading down 31 towards Franklin and possibly stopping, I believe, at Ron Chuck Music.
Okay.